Good evening, Facebook family. Welcome to another Sunday evening session with Brian and Janice. We have a lot of information for you today, and we are so excited to share with you all today. So, I want to start off by saying I hope that everyone has this book in their possession. This is a small read. It's not much to read, but it is a wealth of vital information to inform us a lot about where we were and where we still are now. So it is imperative. If you don't have this book, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about it. It's The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. If you don't have this book, it's a must-have. And it's a small read, as I said before, and everyone needs to get their hands on this book. Not expensive at all, not at all, but I'm asking for everyone that has access to reads to please get this book. Okay? All right, we're going to, as you know, we've been doing this since May of 2020, this year. We've been sharing a lot of information, sharing a lot of vital information with you guys through our feed. We are also on YouTube as Men and Women of Destiny. Brian and Janice, Men and Women of Destiny. We ask you to go onto our YouTube website. It doesn't cost you anything. Just subscribe to it, and you can watch all of our previous videos. And we're doing this to help those out there and to enlighten those that desire to know more information, even on as is relevant today with the voting, and that's been relevant, but people are really getting more conscious of it now and knowing how imperative it is now for us to get out and vote in mass numbers. We have an election coming up in about 25 days or less. So please, everyone, get out and vote. Do your due diligence. We don't, our ancestors gave a lot for us to be able to have this right to vote, and we should not take it for granted. Please go and vote. I'm going to open up the conversation now for Brian to share some vital information with you today.
Okay, good evening, Facebook and YouTube families. We're discussing and we have been looking at the different forms of government that pretty much essentially make up what we know today as the democratic system. So what we have been doing is basically going back and looking at how it was formed, the basis of why it was formed, and who does government benefit. Now, Janice is speaking in reference to voting. We don't minimize the vote as it relates to the African American population. We encourage everyone to vote, but we need to understand that the democratic process and the process that we know as voting being formatted into the system of government that we espouse to, which is democracy, has its place. And in that place, as it relates to voting, we need to understand that the importance of voting not only factors into the sacrifices that our ancestors made, but it determines whether or not you will be able to, as a people, successfully, I would say successfully create an atmosphere to where you can get certain policies pushed through.
Yes.
Policies that benefit not only your people, but benefit collectively the United States and the existence of all people that make up that fabric. Okay. But what we're going to deal with today strategically is the actual theory of American government and the idea of democracy. Okay, so if we can look at that, we're going to break that down for you so that you understand what system you not only exist in, but how to participate in the system and how to be effective in the system. how to make a difference in the system. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you, like I always do. I'm gonna take you back, and then I'll bring you forward. Okay, and we'll discuss. Me and Janice will discuss openly some things as it relates to maybe some questions she may have that you all also may have. But let's start with the theory of John Locke. Okay, John Locke is a British philosopher that actually existed in the 16th and 17th century. He wrote the theory of the second government treatise. Okay, he was an advisor to the Whig Party. This is just a little small history on who John Locke is. But the whole premise of John Locke's theory was hinged upon the people needing representative government. Okay, the word representative is very important because what it declares is that whoever the makeup is of the nation, that makeup should have a government whereby that government is elected by the makeup of those particular people in the society. Okay, so very, very, very important when we talk about the idea of government, because what we know in America and what exists in America today is called representative government. Okay, it is based off of the theory of John Locke, the British political philosopher. Representative government says that the mass of society and how it's made up should be able to elect, should be able to select a representative that actually speaks on their behalf. Okay, so now the people have a voice. It's real simple. I'm trying to put this on an elementary level and just put it in plain terminology so you really understand it, so you get it, make it practical to you. So it's just like Janice living in Alabama. Alabama, she says, hey, this is the way I think. These are the ideas that I espouse. This is what I think works best for not only myself, but my children, my children's children, my children's children's children, etc. And this is the person that we're going to select who espouses the ideas that I believe to represent us in government. Okay, that is the idea of representative government. That is the idea of a democracy. Okay, that is the idea of a democracy. So a democracy simply means that the people have a voice.
Okay.
Okay. That's what it's supposed to mean, guys. Okay. So now we're going back to the 16th and 17th century. We talk about the writings of John Locke, how it influenced what we know today as American democracy prior to a United States Constitution being written and prior to a Continental Congress being formed. Okay? All right, so all of these ideas come out of the British Parliament, comes out of the English forms of government as it relates to monarchy rule and representation from the Whig Party in the British government of Parliament, now being reshaped, refashioned into what we know in the American government as a democratic government. Okay, so that is in just a breakdown, real quick breakdown of how that actually works. Now, if all people are represented by a person that we elect, then that means representation means that the ideas of the people that elect them should be at the forefront concerning issues that those people face in society. Okay, does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so let me say it this way. In the 1868, okay, after the Emancipation is signed, after the 13th Amendment, which is the declaration that declares slavery unconstitutional, after the 14th Amendment, which states that up under the law, everybody, specifically blacks, should be treated as equals. Okay, or 14th Amendment, and then the 15th Amendment, which gives us the right to vote. Okay?
Yes.
All right, so when we look at those three amendments, guys, we should be electing people that espouses those agendas for black people. Okay? So if you live in Texas and you elect a person that doesn't espouse on those three basic foundational principles, then you are not going to be represented
Right.
in this democracy. Okay,
Right.
As a viable part of society is what I want to stress. Okay, so representative government simply was put in place so that all people could have a voice, and the government should work for all people. But now, let's break this down even further. In the process of that, the American idea states that up under this system, freedom is the foundation, liberty is the foundation, and the protection under the law is the foundation. Okay? And that everybody has an opportunity to express themselves based on having representation in this democracy. Here's the flaw, okay? The flaw is that up under the democracy, even though it says that all people should have the right to express themselves and should have representation in this form of government, the government limits what the ideas are that are to be espoused, and they limit the representation that one can have. How do they do that, Brian? They do it via two-party systems. You have a Democratic Party and you have a Republican Party, and the government basically says that H with all the other ideas
Yes.
and other groups that would want to have a party to express the way they think things should be done, and forget about them having representations. They either got to come over to one side
or the other.
side.
Yes.
Okay, now, in this little book that Janice held up, there is a chapter called Political Education Neglected. And Dr. Carter G. Woodson, in this chapter, he speaks on the fact that after emancipation, after the Civil War, there was a reinstitution of slavery by way of taking the slave's mind, releasing him from physical chains, but enslaving his mind with mental chains. That means now controlling how he think and his actions were paramount in reference to making the idea of America continue to work on behalf of those people that created it. Okay? So now the Constitution, when it was written without African people, black people being represented. And the only way to keep the idea working and functioning properly is you have to keep black people from being significant and having a voice in the system that was not designed to include them anyway. Okay, so now, watch this. So this is what the government says that you can only have two parties. You either going to be Republican and you're either going to be Democrat.
Okay.
All right? So they limit you. No other party can exist. That's why the Black Panther Party
did not.
Okay, was destroyed by government institutions, and because they were going against the grain of the two-party system and rising up against the ideology of America, which states that no, we control how you think, what you do, and the way you act. You have no voice in that. You're either this way or that way. So they destroyed the Black Panther Party via their own government being complicit, as we know, with Hoover being the lead man. Okay, there's a good book out called Black Against the Empire. It is a book on the assassination of Fred Hampton, who was the Black Panther Party leader.
Yes.
Very powerful young leader. But the reason that part of that destruction takes place is because in the American government system, there cannot be another party to exist apart from the two parties of Republican and Democrat. Okay, so now they limit your ideas, they limit the way you think, they control the way you think via the media. At one time, there were three main media sources prior to cable network. That was NBC, ABC, and CBS. They controlled the dialogue as it relates to all ideology concerning a Democratic and Republican Party. Okay, so now, once they limit your ideas, they put you basically in a box and says that you cannot have a free party that thinks independently of the ideas that the Republicans or the Democrat espouses. Because if you do, that is considered treason. And we will either execute, that's why our leaders like Malcolm, that's why the leaders of Marcus Garvey, that's why Dr. King, that's why Fred Hampton, we can go on and on, political prisoners such as Assata Shakur, Angela Davis, we can go on and on naming them because they rose up against the political system that was put in place to keep you brainwashed, to keep you locked into a certain way of thinking. They rose up against that, and the American government considered it treason and put their henchmen out on their trail. It was no different from the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act, which stated that if any white person felt like, whether it was 5, 10, 15 years, that their slave had run away, had relocated, and now had freedman papers, they could be bought back and reinstituted into slavery up under the Fugitive Slave Act. And this went on even past the emancipation, where slaves were being bought back to plantations and declared, where they were declared free, declared now to be re-enslaved because Congress passes a Fugitive Slave Act that says, no, they do not have the right to be free. The democratic process that includes these two parties condition you to think one way or the other, and the propaganda that is spewed out via the news media tells you how to view an opponent, tells you who to elect as your representative. They only give you certain pieces of information, bits of information that will help you make an informed decision based on miseducation. Okay. Not based on truth, but based on miseducation that pits one agenda against another agenda. So I need you all to understand this, family. In the political process, we basically have what we call a plutocracy. Okay?
Plutocracy.
Plutocracy. And that is where the wealthy runs the government.
Exactly. Ron.
We do not have a democracy.
No, we do not.
And we never have had a democracy. And when you think about this, you have to think along these lines. The founding fathers that penned the United States Constitution, of course, you were not wealthy. Your ancestors were not wealthy. You were not included. As a matter of fact, they did a masterful job of making sure that the Constitution would forever have would forever promote the institution of slavery and keep it in place. That's the United States Constitution. That is what we so vehemently hang our hat on, so to speak. Okay? Is that we are free people, we're in a free land, and we espouse the ideas. You hear politicians talk about, well, we need to get back to the ideas of how this America was created. No, you don't need to get back to the idea of how this America was created, because this America was created to never include African people. It was created to always espouse and to keep in place the enslavement of black people. That's how simple that is. So now we have African people that get on these propaganda networks and push you either one way or the other, thinking that you are participating in a process of freedom when you're actually not. You're participating in your own brainwashing, because you're not free to think and you're not free to do research, to educate yourself. You have to believe what they say as it relates to the either or, as it relates to what party they support and what agenda and what ideology they espouse. Okay, so now here we are. We got CNN saying that, oh, vote for Biden.
Yes.
He's going to set you free.
Yes.
Vote for Kamala. She's the first African American woman. And then you got Fox News that says, no, Trump has done more for black people than any other president in the United States history other than Lincoln, who emancipated the slaves, which Lincoln did not emancipate the slaves. That's a whole nother subject of discussion. But the emancipation did not free slaves. Period. Okay, let's just keep it that simple. If you all want me to discuss that, we'll discuss that at another time. But it did not free the slave. Yes. Okay, and you've got Fox that says that Pence is the calm of the storm, who is Trump, and that he is presidential, that he was very aware of the issues at hand, that he really made Kamala look elementary, look infantile as it relates to how he espoused on certain issues. So you have two agendas being pushed. You have to fit into one or the other. Any other party, which there are other parties out there right now, there are independent parties out there. But those independent parties are through the Republican and the Democratic parties pushed out of the democratic process because they do not want the people to have an alternative that goes against the ideology of the plutocracy, of the wealthy that runs the government. Understand that?
Got it.
Okay, understand that. They never have, they never will. Okay? So in this idea that we call America, we need to understand that at some point, if we are going to have representative government, we have to begin to look at and to study the idea of creating an independent party for black people that will promote the agenda of black people. Okay? We have many organizations, NAACP, Urban League, we can go on, Rainbow Push Coalition, National Action Network, all of these different so-called black organizations. We have a black caucus that's supposed to be representative of the constituency and the base of black people, but none of these organizations and the institution of the Black Caucus pushes a whole agenda as it relates to black people and their progress in this country. So we have not moved one iota since the Emancipation Proclamation, statistically, concerning economics, education. We have actually gone backwards.
Yes.
In healthcare, we have not progressed. We are regressing. So in every statistic that we look at, that governments look at to determine what society, what the people that make up the society need, black people have regressed, not progressed. And I would say this: there is always the exceptions to the rule. Those of us that have been able to navigate our way through the system and to get the so-called proverbial a piece of the American pie.
Yeah, the American dream.
And the American dream.
Yeah.
It is an enigma because you can lose it as quick as you gained it.
Yes.
Especially if you are a person of African descent, or if you are considered to be a black person. If you are a descendant of the slaves, because the Constitution wrote in it to always keep you enslaved, you can go back into slavery via the system, which is the Constitution, at any time. Okay? At any time. So, the plutocracy, government of the wealthy, is made up of corporations, big businesses, banks. Okay, does everybody understand that? The federal government by way of the IRS.
Oh, yes.
And the Federal Reserve, which falls back under the banking system. Okay, so there are certain facets of this plutocracy that is designed to keep the wealthy wealthy. That's why a young black lady can go to jail for tax evasion, for not paying her taxes, and you can have a president that have never paid taxes, that owe millions to the government, and he's president of the United States. You can have a man that's president of the United States that have never paid taxes. Why? Because the system was designed under the quote unquote blanket of democracy, but in actuality, it is a plutocracy. It is a government designed for the wealthy, to make the wealthy continue to become wealthy. And the poor continues to become poor. Yes. Okay? So the concept here is laissez-faire. Means that you allow the course of the way things go to continue to happen that way. You do not change anything. So what the government institutions, the way that they're set up, it is set up to where things do not change, but yet they flow as they should concerning how the structure and the foundation was built. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that in the process flowing the way that it should, the wealthy continues to be wealthy, the poor continues to be poor. And it doesn't matter how many welfare systems are put in place, so-called to help the poor, because the system is designed a certain way. Those welfare systems actually benefits the wealthy more than they do the poor. I'll give you an example. That's why Donald Trump says, hold up, you created the system where I did not have to pay taxes. That wasn't my doing. He said that openly many times on many news outlets.
Yes, he did.
And guess what? Simply what he is saying is the way that the system was designed to work, I'm just allowing it to work for me.
Yeah.
And guess what? The mother that's on food stamps, the mother that gets aid for dependent children,
yes,
that is designed to keep her at a certain level financially, that is designed to keep her working at a mediocre job, that is designed to keep her dependent upon food stamps, that is designed to keep her having babies so she can get another check as it relates to aid for dependent children, that is designed that way, family, so that that certain group stay where they are. Those of us that have the will and the desire that break out of that to push against that, those are the ones that should hold themselves responsible for going back and trying to educate those mothers and fathers that are locked in a designed system that they cannot get out of, that says we're just going to allow things to go laissez-faire. We're going to make sure that laissez-faire keeps working the way it should.
It's like it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. The way that the rich continues to get richer, the poor continues to get poorer.
Yes.
Okay?
You're right.
So I'll leave it right there and let Janice chime in.
You know, my question is, Brian, when we talked about, and I know everybody heard this, that Donald Trump hasn't paid taxes in, 10 years or more?
Allegedly.
Allegedly speaking. And the amount that he did pay was like $750. And he's the president of the United States. But we cannot even, to at this time, if you wanted to go and work for the state or for the federal government, that is the first thing they want to know. What was your last tax?
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's see your last W-2s or W-4s. You can't even get a job, a decent job, a federal or state job, without disclosing that information. So, but he's allowed to be the president of the United States and hasn't filed any taxes. That just, you know, and that's all a part of the wealthy.
It's part of the wealthy, staying wealthy. And not only that, it's part of conditional thinking. We have been programmed to think a certain way about Donald Trump. Okay? Just like on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have been programmed a certain way to think as it relates to Kamala
and Biden.
Mm-hmm. Okay? So that's why, you know, you hear me say this all the time. It's a TV program. The news is a propaganda network, okay, that is responsible for conditioning people's mind.
Mm-hmm.
It is responsible for programming us to think a certain way based on the ideology that is espoused by either this system or the other system. And unfortunately, neither system works for black people. Okay, so very powerful thing when you have a Black Panther Party to rise up and begin to create programs that feed children in the morning before they go
to school,
mm-hmm. called the breakfast program.
Mm-hmm.
When they began to open up urgent care facilities, what I call back then, it was the prototype for what we see today as urgent care facilities,
right.
But medical community facilities to deal with issues in the black community.
Now this is
Strictly.
What the Black Panther
This is Black Panther Party, mm-hmm. Okay? So all of these things are what we see as a model. It is a program that shows us that when black people, when we begin to think for ourselves, we can do for ourselves. But as long as we allow our thinking to be programmed, we will do what they want us to do. We will act like they want us to act, and we will say what they want us to say. That's why you can meet a black person that fails to educate themselves beyond the news media when it comes to Donald Trump and really do the research on his history. The same relates to Joe Biden. Okay, we sit back and we allow the news media to educate us on people that we're supposedly should trust in, we supposedly trust in, and that we have to make a decision about concerning representing us when neither of these two men have ever represented black people. All you have to do is do the research.
They do the research.
Okay, so we have to get beyond the place. What we saw with the Black Panther Party was simply a model that was created by the Honorable Marcus Garvey, who said that black people had the power and the intelligence to do for themselves. We were a mighty nation, we were a mighty people, and we did not have to settle for this democratic system, which was never intended to work for us. Okay, so what am I telling you today? Yes, participate in the process. You have Shaquille O'Neal that have publicly come out and said that this year is his first year ever voting. Now, listen, family, let me say this. That's why athletes, entertainers, entertain and bounce the ball and run the football. Don't get involved in politics and trying to sway the American people a certain way. Here's a man, multi-millionaire, billionaire possibly, that have never voted and now decides to get involved. And I'm happy that he's getting involved. So don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But there still needs to be leadership that helps us to understand, because he doesn't understand. Even though he's happy he's participating in the process, he really doesn't understand what he's participating in. Okay? So he's happy that he's participating in the process to keep himself enslaved. But hey, he's an enigma. He's an entertainer that did real well with his size and with his gifts and his talent. And he made a lot of money because the system was set up and designed to reward the Negroes that are gifted and that can run fast, jump high, and physically that make spectacles of themselves. It is the old concept of the Roman Colosseum. Okay? The gladiator that wins is rewarded. Okay? So we see the same type systems. Nothing, no pun intended, against my brothers that are athletes. I myself went to college on a track scholarship, so let me make that clear. Okay? I was a pretty good track and field runner at one point in time. But that time is over. But it never took the place of the intellectual responsibility that I took upon myself to make sure that I was educated as it relates to how the system works and how it works for my people and my family, so on and so forth. Okay? So we have to go back and really, as a people, we got a choice to make. You only have a two-party system, so you're going to vote for whoever you want to vote for. After that, we have to do what Frederick Douglass says. And Frederick Douglass says that the struggle demands progress. And you have to get involved in the struggle beyond just voting. Does everybody, you understand that?
Yes.
We have to really get involved in the struggle. Okay? So, Frederick Douglass said that the struggle demands progress. That's simply stating that you got to do something other to let your voice be heard if we're going to change our condition. Okay? So we'll continue to deal with that. We'll continue as we get closer to voting. We'll continue to break down some of these fundamental rudiments of how government works and the actual historical formation of government. We'll continue to do that. We'll continue to answer questions as it relates to the process. But we have to participate in the two-party system. Yes. But do not allow the two-party system to program you to where you do not demand progress after the vote. Okay? So we want to make that clear. Do not allow the two-party system and the news media, propaganda outlets that espouses an ideology. They do not espouse the interests of a people. They espouse the ideology of a certain group of wealthy individuals and how they view you. They do not espouse the thoughts of the people that they represent. They espouse the idea of what they think as it relates to the people they represent. I need to make that clear.
Say it again.
Okay? So understand that they promote their agenda above whatever it is that you think or you believe should happen. Okay.
I just
All right.
want to encourage everybody to be safe. We are seeing an increase in Alabama in COVID cases, and I am going to, Brian, do a small segment one day this week. I'll let you know in advance on the vital things that you need to do to protect yourself from getting COVID. And everybody knows the biggest thing is to boost that immune system. And as for my 30 years of nursing, I've never encountered anything like COVID. You know, people do not have to have fever. That you can cast that out. You do not have to run a fever. You also have to be aware of what are you doing to your bodies every single day to help to build your immune system, to prevent you, should you come in contact with the virus, because you won't know. You don't know who has it. There are people around here, not just young people, you have older people that have made it through the virus and they are coming out of it, okay? So I just want to encourage you. I will be sharing that with you this week, a lot of information to help you stay healthy in this pandemic. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll look forward to hearing from you and to sharing more with you. Next week, we will have another great session for you. We also want you to, we're going to share another watch video tonight. So, in all of that being said, be safe, take care of yourself, and share this information. And also, just
subscribe to the YouTube
subscribe, I was about to say that, to the YouTube channel, Men and Women of Destiny. And get this book if you do not have the Miseducation.
You need to add it to your library.
Of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. So thank you guys and have an awesome night.
Peace,
and awesome
family.
week. Bye-bye.